Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. This is Harika. So by a very good understanding from the previous videos on the entity records that we have performed. So as I told you, in the data service, we have three different sets of activities, right? So we have seen everything that we can work around entity record activities. So now, as I have said in the previous videos, we are going to target the batch activities. So the first thing what we are going to do is create multiple entity records. So as a part of that, let me first run the demo. So here what I'm going to do, I am going to upload the items into the entity in a batch. So this is my entity. Right now you can see there is no data in this particular entity. So I'm just trying to run the workflow. So this is the batch that I have. So all these records has to, okay, I'm showing you this file. So so this is the whole batch. So as soon as I run the workflow, this whole batch has to get the records into my entity. So let's close this and run the workflow. So we can say that the project is getting started. Yes, it's done. So now just refresh and we can see all the records from the particular Excel have been uploaded in just a small run, right? So what I am going to do, let's recreate this particular workflow and I'll help you understand each and every step. So the example that I'm going to use in this particular video is the same one that we are using it from the previous videos. So if you're not familiar with what I am referring to the example, so please do watch the previous videos so that you will get enough understanding, and also you can see what are the different activities that we are using from the previous workflows. So you'll get a good understanding of before jumping it into this video right away. So let me take a particular sequence. So create a batch of records. Okay. So before I actually do this, first let me introduce this activity to you. That's very important. So let's pull this activity here. So we have seen the create entity record activity, right? So this is kind of similar to that. It just have a entity type from which entity you wanted to pull the, create the records. So, and apart from that, we just have few other properties that we should know. So if you just observe, we have continue batch on failure. That means just like a bulk upload in a queue, if something goes wrong, we wanted to, we will have an option like to, upload the items independently or all or nothing, right? So in the same way here also we have something like continue batch on failure. So if you want, do you want to continue even though there is a failure, or you want to stop the process if there's a failure while uploading the items in bulk to a data service. So when I say to upload the items in bulk, there's a limitation. At by using this activity at a time, you can upload 1,000 records only. So if you wanted to upload more than 1,000, so that's again you have to build the logic around it. So while uploading those items, do you want to continue when there's a failure or not? So by default it's set to true. And these are the different things. So we know that generally, it provides an output record after execution of create entity record. But here, apart from output record, we have one more property called failed records. So what this failed records gives is, so let's say as this property is set to true, so if there are any failure records that that failed to create, then you can get the list of all those records here. Okay, and these are the successful items that which got created in the data service. So these are two, and if you just observe, it shows the type of this failure records is a list. It will give you a list of items, and output records is also a list. Let's go to the input now. So what it takes as the input, it's a collection of the records to be created for the select entity type. So basically it's a collection. So now we are clear with what is the input, what is the output, and what is the entity type, and what is the continue on error. sorry, continue batch on error. So after all this, so we have to pass a collection here. So now the task is to build a collection that has to be passed to input records. So now let's get into the actual sequence. So what is a collection? Now we have to pass, it has to come from the table, right? The input. So I'm taking an Excel sheet where I have my data. So for that I'm using read range to read that particular Excel. So let's read this employee details table from the sheet 1 and store this into a data table. Okay, so I have it. And now I am going to use a for each row. Okay, for each row in this particular data table, what I have to do, I have to assign. So for that, we all know first thing and the foremost thing we have to do is initialization. So from the basic videos, we know how to do initialization. Oh, my studio got stuck. I think okay, multiple assign, just pull the multiple and assign into the for each row. So before we actually assign the values, we have to initialize our entity. Okay, so to do that, what I'm doing, employee details, just pull this here and create employee detail records. I want it, or employee records. Okay, employee records is my variable that I'm taking. So, and into that variable, I have to initialize employee details. Okay, employee records. So perfect. We have done the initialization here. And after that, I wanted to add the values from the data table into this particular employee records. So we all know this is a thing that we've been doing from so long. So what is that? Employee name. So what I'll do, I'll just copy these values from the previous workflows because we have already done this earlier, right? So employee name, this is the name, right? So if you're new to this, I would suggest you please go and watch the previous videos because it's been the same thing that we are following in the previous videos. So I don't want it to waste much time on this. Employed from, this is employee ID. This is, let's take one more field and take employee ID here. Employee ID. Okay. Employed from is something, I think this is the one. Employed from. And the other one is current employee, I think. Records dot current employee, which is a Boolean value. So make sure that whatever the values that you are giving it over here, that has to be type matching, otherwise it will throw an error. Okay. And the main thing is the relationship one, which I have made 2 videos on it because that's something which we cannot directly do it. So we have to either query it or we have to either create and then, you know, take the output values and have to use the output values in order to build the relationship values. So for this, what I'm going to do, if you're watching the previous videos, it will be very much clear for you. You don't, okay, I have taken directly, so that's why. If you have watched previous videos, this is a piece of cake for you because I have explained step by step in the previous videos. So I don't want to explain that again. Okay, so here for this, we are using query, right? So for the query, just taking it directly, the query. Pull the query and paste it over here. So I'm querying where employee name of the project is not empty. And then I'm taking all the projects and I will be giving the project names one by one into my workflow. So this is also the same thing which we have done earlier. All the projects of here I have a project count. That's it. So project count I haven't initialized. Let me initialize here. Okay. That I will be incrementing all the time because that value will be changing. So let's change the value of the project count to integer. Okay. And the scope also I'll change. I don't want to see errors at this part. So this is perfect. We have created the data that needs to go into employee records. Okay. And then after that, what we have to do? We have just created a single record at each point of time. The records will be there in the employee records, but we wanted to pass it as a collection. So all these values should go into a collection. So for which we have an UiPath activity called add to collection. Let's take it. Pull this activity inside for each, because after assigning the values every time, I wanted to assign it, add it to the collection. So before to this, before I actually give the collection, what is the important thing that we should do? Initializing the collection, right? So I will take an assign activity, and before for each only, I will initialize the collection. Okay. Take the value. It is a collection. It's a collection of employee details, correct? That is what we are using. It's of type employee details. So now let's create a variable here. Collection of employee details. Right? So the challenge here is we should change the data type. So what it is showing, we should change the data type from system.collection.object model.collection of this, correct? So let's go over here and change this to, if I am getting here by default, but I will show you how you can do that. So it's a collection. Okay, so type for the collection. I don't know, my system is very slow. So system.collection.object model, and it's of type collection, and under this you have to select employee details. Okay, where is the employee details? It's a list. Okay, here it is. Okay, just click on OK, and then we are good. Now we can see that the warning got faded off, and there's one more thing here. We have to add that to the collection. So what is the item that we have to add? First of all, change the type to employee details. Okay, and then what is the item that we are adding? These values, right? Employee records, because that contains, that's the value that it contains at each, for each run, at each loop section, we have the value inside the employee records. So just provide in employee records. So that value has to be, sorry, employee records has to be added to the collection. So now we know what is the collection, we just defined it. It's a collection of employee details. Cool, that's it, we are good. So just by using this activity, we got to know what is the input and output. So we have gone here, we did the assignment, we have assigned everything to the collection. Before to the collection, we have to do the initialization, which we have done. And in order to do that, we just have to take every value. So for which I did a query, and then before to this, I have to read the things. So just by using a simple activity, just by knowing the input and output properties, we have to build up what are the prerequisites for it. So just by knowing it, we can build everything that the activity needs. Okay, so I am going to provide the collection, and the output is, we know it's a list, right? List of successful records. Okay, perfect. And now let's put a log just for our understanding. I will also show you what is happening at each step by doing a debug, so that you'll have a very clear idea of what is coming out of each activity. So that's very important, because if you don't understand what is the output of each activity, you cannot take the things and give it as input to the next activity. So try to understand things clearly, so that even if you get a major or a complex things to automate, it will be easy for you. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint and try to understand things. So I know you know this, we have done multiple times in the previous video. For one thing, I'll show you how this actually executes. Later I'll just jump for the add to collection. Okay, before this actually executes, let me delete this records. Okay, perfect. Let's go to studio. Where is my data service here? Okay. Okay, so we are querying all the projects. So once after that's done, all projects will have all the projects that are there inside the project names. Okay, so let's just check it in the immediate panel. Sorry, all the projects. Here we have the list of all the projects that are there inside the project names entity, which are 7 projects as of now. So I'm assigning the collection, initializing the collection here. So I'll just show you what is the thing against this. Okay, we are here. So let's try to see what is there in employee details, employee records. So if you see, employee records contain all this information. So this is as per the first run. So that means whatever is there in the Excel sheet, that values we are assigning it. So this is of the first records. Okay, so let me show you. This is automation anywhere. This is assigned from the from our data service. So if you see Monica and the employee ID and all these things that we are assigning from the CSV file that we are taking. So after that, we are adding the things to the collection. So before adding the things to the collection, let's see what is there. It should be obviously null of 0, correct? So now let's step into this, and now let's check what is there in the collection. So if you see, we've got whatever the values that are there in the employee records that got assigned, added into our collection. So let's debug this one more time and do a step into. So now the collection should be incremented with more values. If you see, we got 2 records. So the first record, if you want to see what is the individual record that we got, then we can just give a value of this. What is the 0th value in the collection? It's very important to understand what at each step, what is the output, how the values are changing. Then only you can get the whole gist of the concept. So if you just see It's 1, 2, 3, 4. That means the first record, and the name is Monica, right? So let's go to the second record. What is there in the collection? 1, 2, 3, 5, and Chandler, right? So this is what, and if you keep doing, the things will get added from the employee records into the collection. So I'll just put a breakpoint here before we actually do a creation. So yes, we have added everything into the collection. So as per our input, we have 7 items in the Excel sheet. So the collection should contain 7 items. So let's check that. I can give count also directly, collection not count. So it contains 7 items. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, let's try to eh, eh, in the previous example, we know that I have given the create entity record inside the for each. So every time I do a step into it, only one record gets added into my data service. But now if I give step into one time, I mean, if it's get executed once, all the 7 records will be pushed into the data service at a stretch. So let's check that. So I have just given only once, and just come and do a refresh. We can see all the records that are got added here. These are the all the records that I am having in my Excel sheet, right? This is how you can easily perform a bulk create. It is how you can create a batch of records in the entity. So I hope this is clear. I try to simplify the things and try to explain why we are doing and how we have to do. And also at each step, I try to showcase the output so that it will be clear for you to understand what input is going and what is the output is coming from each activity. So I hope I have explained it clearly. And if you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section, and also try this out to get more hands-on, because when you do, you'll get a lot of errors. And let me know in the comments. I'll try to help you out. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos. Thank you so much for watching.